What's up lads? Rimuru Tempest in your house. Today I have something special video for you all guys. Today I'm gonna teach you how to play the Slime God Isekata Terror, Mizuki.
これを吸い込んで消化すればいいんでしょ？頑張るよ。
Mizuki is 6 stars operator stalker specialist. As an stalker specialist, Mizuki has a block 0, which means that he cannot block enemies on his own. Although this makes melee enemies never attack him, is less likely to be attacked by ranged enemies, can dodge both physical and arts attacks 50% at a time, and his attacks hit all enemies within a range of the surrounding 8 tiles with a 1 tile extension in front of him, but with high attack interval and rather high DP cost. Let's jump into Mizuki review. Mizuki can able to inflict heavy damage especially to weaker enemies because his first talent, Traumatic Hysteria, which causes his attacks to inflict an additional instance of arts damage equal to a portion of his attack towards the victim with the lowest amount health point, not by percentage. This is the unique way in which Mizuki handles mixed damage, by having his regular attacks deal physical damage and having his talent take care of the arts damage of it. And to be completely fair, this is probably the most effective way of handling DPS skill. Unlike other units with conditional mixed damage, such as Skill 3 Chen, Mizuki is not directly gimped from his mixed damage as it remains active constantly and is only tacked onto his attacks. He already come off a really good attack stat base, while the increase in both enemy resistance and defense still hurts Mizuki. This difference means he doesn't suffer from it as much as other operators do. Good game, well played Mizuki. Second talent, Counter-Transference. Buffs his attack when an enemy whose health point had fallen below 50% is present within his range, which synergizes well with Traumatic Hysteria and provides him with a small but welcome DPS increase. It should be pretty easy for Mizuki to have large groups of enemies within his range, which should help trigger this talent often. Mizuki has 3 skill. Skill 1, Awaken. The next attack deals amount percentage of attacker's physical damage and increases the damage multiplier of Mizuki's first talent to amount times. Can store amount charges, good consistent damage, and can pack quite a punch when paired with attack buffers and skill point recharge operators. Probably his best DPS skill, and greatly increases damage dealt by Traumatic Hysteria. Skill 2, Prisoner's Dilemma. Attack interval reduces, increase attack percentage. Mizuki's first talent targets one additional enemy and inflicts bind for amount seconds. Good for consistently binding up to 2 enemies at once, improves DPS. Makes Traumatic Hysteria effect 2 enemies and temporarily binding them. Skill 3, Moon in the Water. Attack range expands, increase attack percentage. Mizuki's first talent targets 2 additional enemies and inflicts stun for amount seconds. When attacks hit less than 3 enemies, Mizuki loses amount percentage maximum health points, huge boost in range and damage, and stuns up to 3 targets with each attack. This gives him a unique range among the archetype and much better active skill DPS than other current stalker specialists can provide. My opinion about Mizuki. Mizuki is an excellent stalker specialist who uses his subterfuge and tricks of the trade to devastate his enemies with little to no fear of retaliation, especially should the enemy is too weak or are already injured, allowing him to literally turn the tides of the battle when used correctly. Still, the one thing in which Mizuki does remarkably better than the other units of his archetype is an attack, having a significantly higher stat here than all others. Taking into account the survival-oriented traits of his archetype, this is a big win for Mizuki, as it's unlikely the defensive stats will be of much matter with his natural evasion and lower taunt level. About his 3 skills. Mizuki's first skill comes very close to being a completely generic one, as it grants him charges of a more powerful attack every 7 seconds, when you already master E3 skill 1, of which he can store up to 3 at a time, to be released automatically the next time he attacks, like Ijafjala skill 2, while this is a pretty decent skill for lazy constant DPS. It really does not hold much potential and is hindered by its focus on mixed damage, as increases in resistance can make it tank heavily when compared against any guard's generic skills, which already come off a higher base attack stat and faster attack interval. This skill simply doesn't hold much potential. Mizuki's second skill's to interact with his first talent, and it does so in quite an interesting way, enabling his first bind characteristics and making him similar to the 4-star Stalker Ethan. In this regard, Mizuki's bind abilities are quite commendable. His overall skill uptime is a bit better than that of Ethan. Without the RNG aspect that the former reunion member has, many do still consider this to be his best skill, though, as the binds are, if nothing else, very consistent. With a 21 second duration and only 15 SP of charge, this skill manages to have a really good uptime of 58%, making it not only a good option for binding enemies, so long as their numbers don't exceed the target count of his improved first talent, but also his best option for consistent DPS. Mizuki's third skill is to Manticore, spinning it around into a mix of decent DPS, more burst oriented in this game, and target limited crowd control. While it is definitely better than Manticore's pretty atrocious stun uptime in her second skill, 1 second of stun for every 3.5 of his attack interval really isn't enough for most occasions, and its limited nature also makes it worse at taking on larger groups of enemies. The uptime is also pretty bad in comparison, with Mizuki's 33% being half of Manticore's 66%, and with a pretty long charging time of 60 skill point. When you already master E3 skill 3 Mizuki, if you wanna master E3 his skill, my recommend favor is skill 1, because his skill 1 is the highest overall DPS skill by quite a bit. However, the damage front loads and waves, and there are lots of consistent damage options out there these days, so taking the utility and stronger control is generally the better option. Skill 2 is quite good with respectable DPS. At Master E3 the cycle time is pretty short too, giving him a good uptime. If you don't want to waste your material and book, Ethan skill 2 maybe is the best choice for binding, but it's still RNG for me, and for bind enemies, skill 3 is the bad choice for mastery skill. Skill 3 just doesn't bring anything meaningful over the other options, along with a brutally long cooldown. It even works against his archetype, forcing some measure of team support that stalkers don't usually need, and skill 3 has bad downside. If Mizuki didn't hit less 3 enemies, Mizuki will lose amount percentage health points. If you want a middle budget crowd control stalker specialist, you can choose Manticore skill 2, because she has low skill point and long duration skill. If you already understand this Mizuki review, now you must see, your Mizuki now should look into like this.